again with Tough Talk Motivation. It's going to be episode 2 with Coach Derricke Brown of Salle High School, amongst other things, club, semi-pro, UPSL team. Coach Brown and I have known each other for, about 8 years probably now. I've got to know Coach Brown pretty well. When we actually did a team together, UPSL team, Contra Costa FC, he was the first guy that came to my mind when we started doing this team. Helped me coach it. I wasn't the coach, but he helped me coach. I tried to manage as best I could, which was hugely, I would say, successful, especially for the first time venture in this area. And he and I got to know each other a little bit more on that page as well. One of the things that's always struck me about him is how, really it's the humility aspect of it. He's always calm, especially when he's on the soccer field, coaching, maybe not playing, but coaching, he's always calm. He's just kind of always sitting there reserved. He's very, he likes to analyze. He looks over these things. And it's kind of one of the things that struck me the most was how, poised he was during coaching. His program at De La Salle is one of the things he runs exceptionally well. I think there's a lot of things that are done well at the high school, but I think the soccer program is one of the things that stands out. Going back to championships and just it's not even about the championships. It's really just about the expectations that's required. The team atmosphere, the work ethic, everything that's required from these athletes, I think is just exceptional. And I think it develops and helps them grow into men. So I think this is kind of one of the main reasons why I was excited to kind of bring Coach Brown on to do this. It's just to kind of get an idea and a perspective, more or less, from how he handles things, because I just think there's certain people that you can see that do things the right way, and he's definitely one of them. So again, I've got to know him well, so I think it's going to be a good talk. I'm glad you guys are tuned in on this. So Coach, thank you for joining us here today. So first, I think it's a good idea if you just kind of give everybody your background, kind of where you were raised, where you come from, and kind of the route you took, so to speak, to where you are today.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good. Cool.
This is actually my first Zoom without a virtual background, so I feel naked right now. But no, again, thanks for having me. I watched the first episode of Basketball Trainer. I thought it was pretty cool. So it's kind of an honor to get to do something like this. Usually I don't get invited to do stuff like this. I'm not the most exciting guy, but hopefully you can entertain a little bit today. But
trying to fly under the radar, bro. That's why. Good though.
Actually, I was born in Walnut Creek. If you want to go all the way back, family was living in Pleasanton at the time, so I spent my first 9-10 years living out there. Started playing soccer when I was 4. At that time, Pleasanton was kind of a hotbed for soccer. A high school level, Amador, Granada, those kind of schools in that little area were winning all the NCS titles. Ballistic United was the top club for boys at that time. So I was raised kind of at the sports park out there. If you're familiar, it's just this long stretch of fields. There is a American football element, but it's like at the very end, there's like 2 football fields, but the rest is some baseball fields, and then it's just soccer fields for days. So I was just raised kicking the ball, following my older sister around. She's 13 years older, so she was kind of already making a mark for herself. She was a goalkeeper, played at Foothill High in Pleasanton and all that. So just been raised around the soccer field. From there, I moved to Oakland when I was 10. That's really, I think, where my maturity really started kicking in. Raised around some really great athletes at that time, and just raised playing in the streets every day, going to the park, playing basketball, I played baseball as well. I was actually a pretty good baseball player, playing with guys like Jimmy Rollins, Dontrell Willis, people like that. We're growing up in those times, and just going to play strikeout at the local school and things like that. I think were really where I started to enhance the competitive nature that I already had from a young age. And I think it kind of gave me the foundation of not only, being a competitor in sports, but just approaching life in a certain way. The tricky part of all this, when we moved to Oakland for about the next 5 years, I had to self-commute back down to Pleasanton I didn't want to quit playing with my friends on ballistic, and my dad realized that it was the best place for me to continue playing at that time. So my dad worked a graveyard shift, went into work around 9 till about 6 a.m. So right after school in Alameda, I would get on a bus to Fruitvale BART, get on a BART train, BART down to Dublin area, get on another bus to Pleasanton, go to practice, and then flip it, come back. And then when I get back to Fruitvale BART, I'm on a friendly cab. I'll never forget the phone number, 536-3000, call it on a pay. Get in the cab, and then the cab would take me home. My dad would come out and pay for it just before he went to work. So I don't know how safe that was at that time for little kids, but at the same time, it taught me a lot about independence, being mature, pushing myself to do things that maybe I was too tired to do or didn't really want to do on certain days. I had to finish my homework on time, maybe on the BART, going or coming. Just learning how to be a student athlete and learning how to be a man, I think was really the two most important things that I learned during that time frame. So from there, I played at St. Joe's High School. Pretty good career, I guess, there. Moved on, got recruited a few different places, but ended up at St. Mary's College in Moraga. One of the most beautiful campuses I've ever seen. It was between that and Loyola Marymount, and I just decided to stay close to home. Tricky part there, the coach who recruited me, at the end of my freshman year, stepped down. So I had a completely different coach, completely different staff from there. So my college career wasn't as probably decorated as I maybe hoped or imagined when I stepped foot on campus or I was entering that phase. Yeah. But it was at St. Mary's. The goalkeeper coach, Tom Ginocchio, had summer camps that he asked some of us to run. I think it was after my sophomore year. And once I started being around kids and coaching, something just told me inside of me, this is where I need to be. So
when you're at St. Mary's and they switched all their coaching staff, because I think it's also, to me, it's a big thing, right? I mean, nowadays you look at the transfer portal, right, for all these colleges kids, especially maybe this lands more into American football, but a kid goes through it, you all of a sudden you get a new coach and everybody wants to transfer out, right? So did you ever think you were going to transfer at any point, or was it just kind of like, this is my school, this is what I'm doing, doesn't matter who's coaching?
I entertained it. I had a couple of my ballistic teammates that were up at Chico State at the time. I took a visit out there just to check it out, but I didn't actually ever really pursue it. I had met some great friends freshman year at St. Mary's, and like I said, once I kind of got settled in there, I didn't really want to leave. I mean, I was in Division I college soccer, got to play at some really cool places, some really cool environments, and just training and playing at St. Mary's was enough for me. And like I said, that transition into working with youth and just, growing up and being more of a man and realizing the importance of family. My parents were getting older and things like that. I just said, you know what, I'll just finish it out. Like I said, it's a beautiful place to go to school. So there wasn't a bad day there, despite, what could have been happening during practice or maybe not playing in certain games. But never really seriously pursued.
Did you ever try to pursue like pro at all? Or was it just kind of after college, you were like, you know what, I'm ready to kind of get started on my career and then also coaching?
I think I'd had almost enough by that point. And I also realized there were some guys out there who were a lot better than me.
Yeah. That's hard, man. That's hard. Most people come out of most people frame of mind is like, okay, I'm at a college, so I'm a D1 athlete, so I can make it to a professional level. But I don't think they realize how hard it is to actually take even a step up from Division I to pro. Yeah. Like you're talking about the tops of the top making it to professional. And people are like, oh, well, just because I made it to D1 means I'm going to be pro. And I think that's an unrealistic expectation that I think most kids these days don't know. They don't actually they can't process that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think the West Coast Conference is a really, even to this day, is a very good conference for soccer. So I got to play against some really good players. We played Stanford 3 out of the 4 years that I was there. We got smoked every time. I mean, there were just players that I knew, just being honest with myself, that were on a whole different career path than I was. Played a little bit in the San Francisco Premier League after that. Traveled around a little bit kicking the ball, but it wasn't ever anything near signing a contract or anything like that. So.
Well, let's spin that into like a little bit of training. So like I said, I obviously I'm De La Salle strength and conditioning coach, right? So we kind of have that working relationship, anyways. So I kind of ins and outs of the program a little bit, see kind of how you handle things. Like I said, the calmness of it, the expectations. It's just kind of like, this is what you guys are expected to do. And if you don't do it, and I know you're talented, but if you're not, you're not going to kind of buy into the team culture, putting others before yourselves, like that kind of stuff, the work ethic. There's just not really a place for it. So for me, that's just kind of a big part of how I always have looked at things. So from my aspects, it's like, all right, well, for you going from De La Salle, kind of what I guess experience, traits, successes have you seen? What kind of athletes do you see coming out of that program? The ones that are the most successful, looking at it from like, if I'm a younger athlete, what's it going to take for me to kind of make it to that Division I level? And how do you see that from the experience that you've had with DLS soccer specific?
Gotcha. I think first of all, I'm just in a very, very great position. I don't take anything lightly as far as being the coach and the leader of our soccer program. We're fortunate at De La Salle, as to have some really high-driven kids, or young men, I should say. And it's not that difficult to get them to do something. You just have to figure out the right messages with whichever group you're working with at that time. Because I think, unfortunately, we do get a sense of complacency at times because things are so easy for the kids that we work with. Everything there is set up for them to succeed. So it's easy for some of them, and it's a very small percentage, I'd say, but to almost take advantage of the situation and not put everything that they should put in. So I think while I do maintain a sense of calm, I'm very, very hard on the guys, and I try to push them. And I think the number one thing that I try to sell them on is having a sense of urgency while they're there. The 4 years goes by extremely fast, and going half speed on a certain training or workout, or not caring about a certain matchup on the schedule, at some point you got to realize you can't do that, because that's not a good way to live life. So sense of urgency, I think, is number one for me. Number two, we're blessed to have kids coming from different areas, not just one little spot in Concord. But I think that's also a difficult thing that we have to deal with, because we have kids that are playing on, at times, 7 or 8 different club teams. So what I try to do is, with that sense of urgency, just try to build that family environment as quickly as we can. It starts in the offseason and preseason, and hopefully once we hit the ground running, we have a decent foundation to build upon. But a lot of the times, most of the messages are not necessarily about soccer. It's about enjoying the time that you have with your teammates. It's about pushing each other. It's about getting through disagreements. It's about getting through dips in form, et cetera, et cetera. So I think through those relationships, those bonds, it strengthens our performances as a team once we do hit the field.
Well, I mean, how do you deal? So, like, I think if I'm a high school coach watching too, I think one of the big things I even have questions, right? They go, well, all these kids, and especially from the soccer perspective, they all play club, or they play at a higher club level. How do you handle that? Because during the off season, it's like a high school season is short. So most of their developmental years are spent on the club system. So it really becomes, and this is where I see it as, it's like it becomes a management of talent. And, and how do you manage that? You're putting them in the right places to not only be successful, but you're also having to challenge them. But there's such a commitment to the program year round, even though they don't play for the team year round. And I think that's kind of where I think a lot of high school coaches are always like, man, how do you, like, I'm a seasonal coach, so I just see them in the season. Everything else is on their club. But I think that's a misconception of what truly success in building the program is. And what I've noticed is that for DLS, it's different. Just the expectation is even like, hey, it's off season. You guys should still be, doing something together. So how do you handle that, especially with the off season, man, with all the club play?
Yeah, so I think I kind of went away from your original question. I'll scale it back to kind of an individual basis before I get back into the team thing. I try to, and I learned a lot of this from Coach Jean's baseball coach, in terms of it's all basically one season. Obviously, we ramp it up in the winter months, and it's a regular season, postseason run.
Yeah.
But I make an effort to get to know each of the kids as best I can year round. Obviously I coach clubs, so I'm able to see them at different tournaments. And when our high school season's over, I make sure to check in. Which club team are you guys playing with? Which age group? I make a little schedule on my whiteboard, and I say, all right, I got at some point over the summer, or even spring, summer, fall, I got to go see these kids play in their different environments. I think it does two things that way. I get to learn about it. Maybe they're playing a different position, or maybe their coach is communicating with them in a different way than I do that either is good or bad. And it shows the kids that we have a different level of care. I want to support them year round. And like I said, with that sense of urgency, I don't have much time with them at all. So I want to get the most that I can out of each individual that comes through the program. And those two things.
That right there, that's crazy. Not to interrupt you, but that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's something I don't even realize, right? I think one of the things that we talk about is like you got to actually care about the kid that you're coaching. Like you got to actually show that, right? But I don't think I would challenge any high school coach that's watching, like how many high school coaches actually go out and watch their kid play, or their kid that's going to come to their high school program play in another, like with their club team, whether it's soccer, baseball, whatever. Do you actually go and watch them on, like, and then you're not coaching them at that point, but you're just going to watch the kid. It's really, it's the support. Yeah, you're going to use it as two ways. You're supporting them, but you're also getting to know them and how they play more stylistically. So the season becomes that full year. I think that's a separation right there as a coach in general, program-wise, coach-wise.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be easy to sit back and, I mean, we could probably win a good amount of games every year without, I wouldn't have to do much except everything that's quote unquote regular, right? But we have an opportunity to try to push at higher things every single season. That's my motivation. And I think it doesn't always work out. There's usually a few players who end up on whatever team they end up, freshman, JV, varsity, that don't have the experience that maybe they dreamed of, or maybe they're scoring crazy goals in club and then they don't make a team that they think they should make. But I think it's a little bit of risk versus reward to invest in each of our kids and hope that it works out. And if it doesn't, at the end of the day, hopefully both sides did the best that they could do to make that happen. The other thing I wanted to mention with that community, when they see me at different games, it actually enhances the relationship with the parents as well. One thing at De La Salle that we do is we ask our parents to do a lot as soon as they step foot on campus, whether it's carpooling our freshman soccer team, which actually saves us a bunch of money on buses. Running the snack shack, scoreboard things, filming the games, all that kind of stuff that we asked them to volunteer and do. I think it means more to see the coaches, the leaders of the programs fully invest in their kids and not just clocking in and out when high school season starts. So that's a big part of it.
So then how do you transition sort of from high school to club? I know obviously you coach club soccer as well. So how do you handle, like, from the club perspective, like obviously there's going to be a difference, right? In how you handle certain things. But do you notice that there's similarities, more regarding towards like skills, soccer traits? Like how do you see that from the success standpoint from like kids? So if you're looking at it going, all right, typically the most successful kids in club soccer do X or do Y or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's club is getting better and better. I think with and I'll say we, because I'm included in that program, what we are offering, you've seen it, you've been involved with kind of the speed and agility element. They're trying to incorporate more strength and conditioning. So I think the full package that you're able to kind of offer at the high school level, just because you have the field and the weight room right there, which clubs, pretty much 9 out of 10 clubs don't have that sort of facility. Clubs are making more of an effort to give them that experience as well. And I think kids with club, at times, it could be a little bit more relaxed because it's such a long season. I think the heat in the summer months also has an effect where there's usually a dip where kids are lacking a bit of motivation just because it's 100 degrees and it's 4 o'clock and you're trying to push them to train. And that's where you really see kind of the difference in the commitment levels of the kids that you work with, because there's some grinders out there who it could be freezing cold or, like I said, 100 degrees out there and they're training just as hard as they would any other day.
Yeah.
There's those where you see who might be like, oh, well, kind of sick today, I'm not coming, or hey, coach, I need a break, my stomach hurts. So you see little things like that over the course of a club season that you don't necessarily see with high school just because it's so compact. And I think with the high school season, they're so dedicated to that short amount of time. There's more reachable goals because they're closer. So those are a couple differences. But I think just as far as the athlete goes, the good thing is they're all taking it more serious year round. So I've noticed the club competitions have gone up a little bit. I think the big issue that we're having right now, and maybe it's not an issue, it's just that separation. There's obviously the top tier academy level.
Yeah.
So club under that, there's a certain ceiling because the kid's like, oh, well, I don't play academy. So there's NPL, there's this and that. There's all these sort of competitions. And I don't know, at some point, how do you weigh each of them? Which one's better than others? Which one are college coaches going to see me play? So there's this mass hysteria of confusion just because I think it's not crystal clear all the time which things are most important. So there's all these college showcases out there at the club level, ID camps, things like that. And I think that's the new dilemma for parents and players is which of these things do I really need to focus on? Where if you're an academy player, it's right there for you.
Yeah.
I mean, your academy.
What do you think they need to focus on then? If you look at it from a recruiting / skill perspective, like, you know, because again, it is that, right? If I'm not on the top team, a lot of times people will be like, all right, well, I'm not on the top team, I'm not going to take it serious.
Yeah.
Or they lose motivation because they didn't make a top team. But, you know, I've seen personally where kids who have been on the second team or even third team, and they turn out to be the best player. Part of it is because they're hungry, they're motivated, they're always constantly working, they're doing extra, they're going above and beyond. I mean, that's part of it. So they end up developing into a better player than that top team player. So what do you think parents should be focusing on, or kids at this point?
I think it's most important that it's the student athlete that is focusing on all this stuff. I mean, obviously the parents are involved in the equation because at some point, if the full ride scholarship thing is very rare. So at some point, the parents are going to have to contribute their perspective and their opinion based on what's realistic for the family and where that student athlete can go to school. So I always tell my guys, or just guys who come to me for advice about college, you want to try to first pick a school that you can see yourself out without sport, right? And with that, you can easily or more easily target realistic destinations for yourself. So instead of going to 10 or 12 different ID camps, if you're interested in these 3 to 5 schools, figure out if those schools host their own ID camps and go to those. You don't need to be bouncing all around and doing this and doing that. So I think there just needs to be more of a plan for each individual, which will make it a little bit easier to make those decisions. And it can add up trying to fly around and do all these ID camps. So I don't envy these kids at all and these parents at all. It's a very tough situation right now in terms of that pursuit. It was a lot simpler back in the day. But yeah, I just try to get them to target as much as possible. Have a focus, figure out what you're interested in studying, figure out what kind of environment you're interested in going to school in. You want to stay close to home, hot weather, cold weather, et cetera, and try to really target and focus the next 4 to 6 years of your life. And I think that's kind of a better plan than just bouncing all around.
Do you think, is there like, we'll kind of cover this up, wrap this up. Do you think that there's a difference now? Like, I know you just mentioned it kind of about, you don't envy them, especially nowadays. And I obviously there's so much diluted stuff out there, right? You know, you have from training tips to, go here, no, come to my camp, come to this camp, pay $200, pay $250, pay this. But do you see a change in the generations nowadays? I know every generation's different, but like I look back at what you said you started with, and it's like, and you're like, oh, I took this cab, I took this BART, I took this. Now we're fortunate to have some kids who have to do that. And I don't say that I'm not saying that everybody should do that, right? But that teaches you a lot. It does. It teaches you a lot of responsibility. You got to motivate yourself. You got to wake yourself up. You got to get your stuff done. But unfortunately, that's not really as possible as much as it probably was maybe back when you were growing up, or when I was growing up. But nowadays, I'm like, there's such a change in the generations, right? Yeah. So do you see changes in the generations now, especially when you're training and working with them?
I do. And I think
kind of what they are, if you will, you know what I mean?
Yeah. My staff and I have been talking about this probably the last, say it's 2020, maybe since around 2013, 2014, I think I started to notice a change. We had to definitely change our approach a little bit and the way that we communicate and deliver our messages. Not that kids are more sensitive. I don't want to go there. I don't want to put that out there, but I think the amount of pressure that's on these kids is a lot different, and it's a lot more severe with the social media. They got to be having some paranoia every day that something they do is going to end up on there and being spread, through the schools and through the community. Just getting into the college that they want to get into seems to be ultra competitive right now. And so I think kids have gotten maybe smarter in terms of keeping those GPAs real high. There's some crazy, crazy grades right now, and the kids are very focused and they're able to accomplish those sort of tasks, which I can appreciate. So I think the difficult part is when they hear messages that they don't want to hear, when they're dealing with a bit of adversity, that part of their emotional stability has changed a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're having to help them with that and kind of reteach some of the things that they already know and constantly remind them of everything's going to be okay. Don't panic. It's all good. But this is how maybe you should approach this situation the next time it happens versus just used to be on them. And I guess maybe some of it was when we were younger and we're yelling and cursing and all that, scaling that back a little bit and trying to have a more conversation with them. Doesn't mean we don't ramp it up at times, obviously, but I think there's definitely that change for sure. And it's a societal change overall. I think.
Definitely. It's definitely, you can't yell as much as you used to, right? Yelling, right. You used to be able to yell and kids would just, whatever, they may hate you for it, but it was that disciplinary inside. I think it's definitely changed. It's, maybe it is, they have more stressful things that are on their plate, but I think they handle their emotions like way different nowadays than I think we did back in the day. Yeah. I think that to me is like, that's one of the realities is that you got adversity and all of a sudden you have this adversity and then they shut down. Yeah. And I think that's where it's like, you're trying to navigate through that for them so that they can learn that. Not everybody gets that at home either. They get adversity and it's like an excuse out of, well, it's not my fault, it's this person's fault, or the blame game shows up.
I've been definitely different. Not to cut you off, but I've been reading this book. I'll share it with you offline at some point. But it talks about the kids that are growing up these days. They don't have, as I mentioned before, they're not always outside playing. Mm-hmm. It's free games, where there's no coach, there's no this. They're just having competition. I think just going back to, like I said, growing up playing basketball with my friends, baseball, whatever it is. Sometimes you get in little fights. You get mad at each other. So I think learning how to resolve conflicts at a young age, dealing with adversity. Maybe you're not always winning. Going home at the end of the day, mad, pissed off because had a bad day on the playground. I don't think this era is getting that much. Everything that they have is very structured, and I think
not enough freedom.
You need that element. Yeah.
Right.
I think that's a part of it too.
Yeah, I noticed that. How many times I remember going in the park. We'd play smear the. Well, I guess I don't even know if you're allowed to say it anymore, right?
Don't say that. Yeah, don't say that.
Yeah, right. But we'd play it on rollerblade, bro. We'd be rollerblading, tackling each other like on concrete. We did things where you're like, what were you thinking, right? But nowadays, we play pickup football, we play 2v1 football, we play soccer, we play basketball, you play anything you could think of, but it was outside. We'd play capture the flag, but we'd always be fighting. I don't mean fighting as in, we're just gonna go and fight. We get mad, so you'd hand that was part of growing up. I just don't see that anymore. I think that's a big change, man. That's a big change. Yeah. You learn to handle it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So, anyways, well, I appreciate you coming on, talking.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, we're you Bartlett Street Soccer as your Instagram.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to follow along and see kind of what he does a little bit with his training and whatnot, can message him through there. But again, especially if you're a high school player, I think this is great for you guys to learn kind of where to navigate, how to navigate yourself through these times, especially when you start getting into high school soccer or towards it, what to focus on, what not to focus on. Even from a coach perspective, some of the things that, again, that you can and cannot do. High school soccer coach, definitely a great listen. I would challenge you to kind of do what Coach Brown talked about where, he said, hey, look, man, this is a full season. It's a full year. And he went out and watched their games, even if they're playing club. That's a great opportunity for you guys to do the same. I think that's a good challenge for you. But again, we'll keep doing these, keep interviewing different people from different backgrounds, different sports, just to kind of hope that, again, we kind of navigate our way through, like we talked about a little bit, the new generations and whatnot. So again, appreciate you guys tuning in. Go ahead and give Coach Brown a follow as well at his Instagram, but we appreciate you guys, and we'll stay in touch and be back for another episode shortly.